Hey, Daily Dosers, this is Pastor Larry, and on this bonus Monday, I want to take a moment and look back at something from this last weekend's message. We talked about good news for confused Christians and this idea that we don't have to really understand everything. We just have to live in obedience to the light we have. And even when we get it wrong, we don't have a God who says, you get in if you answer all the questions on the Scantron properly. We have a God who says, let me see who you're following. Let me take a look at the blood test that you have. And there was a verse that I quoted, but I want to dig into just a little bit more. It says, many are the plans in a person's heart, but it's the Lord's purpose that prevails. That comes from Proverbs 19:21. And I think it's such a good picture of how following Jesus actually works out on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes we make it too mystical. We make it too passionate. We make it kind of out of reach with these idealistic things. And that's not really how it's lived out in Scripture or lived out in day-to-day life. The truth is, almost every day is just another day of work, another day of relationships, another day of responsibilities. And we make plans and we figure out what we're supposed to do. And behind the scenes, God is always part of the story, directing and doing what he wants. He speaks of kings this way. The king's heart even is like channels of water that he directs wherever he wants to, like irrigated water back then, that they were able to take it from here and get it over there. The Lord is always, always at work. And when I try to help him out too much, I end up just messing things up. I kind of think back to when my kids were little. Sometimes they wanted to, quote, help. And as dad, I love that being with them. But the one thing I didn't love is when they went out and tried to help out on their own and made a mess of everything, or they wouldn't listen as I'm trying to explain, no, you hold it this way or you cut it this way or whatever it would be. You see, all God is asking us to do day in and day out is do what's in front of us. Do it to the best of our knowledge in line with Scripture, loving him, putting his priorities first, and loving people as we love ourselves. And then guess what? He comes along and fixes it up. It kind of reminds me, your life and mine is a little bit like something that we used to do when we'd go to Cabo. We'd go to Cabo and we would, Nancy, not me, but she'd go down and she'd paint some pottery or whatever down at the beach. And then they would fire it and give it back to us. And this thing that looked like, well, kind of adequate, suddenly was beautiful. Well, what had they done? They had taken the work that she did and then they touched it up a little bit. They put the glaze on it. They put it in the oven. And next thing you know, we've got some things that we have on display in our house. Now, Nancy can't run around going, look at what a great artist I am. But here's what she can do. Look at this beautiful pot. And that's the story of what God does with our life. You and I worry way too much. We simply have to paint the best we can. Obey what we know. Love others as Jesus has loved us. And then he comes along behind and fixes every little thing, glazes it, and says, here, this is a trophy piece worthy of being on display. Let God do that in your life. You'll be glad you did.